Hello gamers, today I'm going to be reacting to Asmongold's latest on a couple of different subjects, starting with he was right, and he was right about something. Let's dive right in, actually a few things. Let's take a look. Alright, so let me start with him here.
Now, I thought this was funny. May 19th, 2025. If esports and pro gaming wants to rely on outside money,
He called
they
it.
should embrace porn, gambling, and alcohol sponsors. June 26, 2025.
Right. So yeah, he posted about this. I mean, this was about a month ago. And lo and behold, a major esports provider is like, I mean, it might have happened. All right, I can't say for sure, but it might have been the case that the world's largest esports firm is like, yeah, Asmongold is right. Zach's right. I'll play it for you.
1 month later, why we are opening betting sponsorships in esports and how we're doing it responsibly. Oh, man. That's crazy. What are the odds? Wow.
I mean, it's pretty good odds. It's pretty good odds, right? A lot of people watch Zach, Asmongold, and gamers have power. All right. Now, did he tell him to do it? He suggested it. He made the point, and sometimes a well-placed suggestion, right, can go a long way. So maybe that's what happened. Let's watch.
So, yeah, there we go. And I would do this. Yeah, I told y'all this shit was going to happen. I said this shit was going to happen. Everybody wanted to act like it wasn't, but now it is. And so that's where we're at. Everybody was mad at me. But the one thing that they weren't saying is that I was wrong.
Right.
Once again,
Right. I mean, a lot of he caught a little bit of heat for that. I mean, because it's putting liquor in the same space as games and stuff. Maybe not, doesn't always mix. I mean, but traditionally it has. I mean, just like basic recap of the history of arcade. I mean, where a lot of arcades come in, they came in on the side of bars. So I mean, these things are definitely not unheard of. So yeah. Anyway, let's watch.
have been vindicated. Once again, I have been proven right. And one of the biggest companies with one of the biggest and most extensive esports organizations in the world is opening up
it's kind of inspiring
sponsorships in esports and how we're doing it responsibly. Yet who cares whether it's responsibly or not?
Right. It's got to be responsible. A lot of these sports leagues, I think, drinking age varies. So, I mean, it's going to be some countries it's going to be 16, 18 and up. US is obviously going to be 21. There should be marketed. It should be marketed in a way that doesn't push it on a younger clientele. But other than that, I mean, drinking responsibly past that age, as long as you're not drinking and driving, right? Like, and if it's like Rocket League or something, you're probably going to be hurting yourself in the game if you're drinking before, playing Rocket League. So just don't do that, right? Competitive disadvantage.
I mean, I'm gonna just tell you right now, you cannot advertise gambling responsibly. Like, if you and by the way, if you think this is not true, let's use the golden rule. Okay, let's use the Jesus rule. If you die and you go to the gates of heaven, it's not, I think it's St. Peter, right? But like, let's say it's Jesus. And you say, and Jesus says, I don't know if I want to let you in this shit. And you're like, why? I've been such a good boy. He says, oh yeah? Well, what about advertising and promoting gambling?
Right.
And you say, well, no, I was promoting gambling responsibly. Do you think Jesus would be like, oh, understandable, have a nice day, come on into heaven? Absolutely not.
Yeah, I think he may have a point there. I mean, he may have a point there.
Absolutely, without a second, 100% no. And that's the thing. That's
Gamers. Do not play dice. No games of chance. Naughty. I think there may be degrees of these things.
That's the thing. That's what matters. Why not? Well, Jesus is based. Well, no. Remember, he threw all that merchant stuff around, right? He didn't like that at all. And so anyway, how do you advertise porn though if you can't show porn on ads? Simple. All you do is show the name. It's easy. They used to have advertisements for Girls Gone Wild all the time back on MTV. They just do the same thing with this. And so anyway, yeah, so they're opening up betting sponsorships for Tier 1 League and Valorant teams with safeguards to protect the competitive integrity and fan experience. I want to say one thing.
Say one thing.
Exposing people to gambling will kill a percentage of those people.
Yeah.
Now, what is a...
Oh, that's an ad. Okay.
Acceptable
rate
of human sacrifices. 1 in 1,000.
I mean, it's it's a little bit of a dramatic way of phrasing it. Human sacrifices. Yeah, I don't think any gamers are going to be volunteering up to be human sacrifices, but I mean, you know, to Zach's point, there's there's considered acceptable degrees of like hazard, ethical hazard or whatever in a given like entertainment or any number of workplace, any number of contexts. So yeah, there needs to be some measure kept of to make sure that people are not just willy-nilly going into gambling and drinking or porn addiction or something. But these are figures that are actually dealt with in the real world. Some people get addicted to games and things that have no basic potential for addiction. It's more of a personal issue. So these figures reflect the broad public. So there's something that has to be figured out. Let's continue.
1,000, 1 in 10,000, 1 in 100,000, 1 in a million, and that's really what the question is, right? 7%. I mean, that's a lot. So it's 7. Okay, 7. Wow. Okay, so like fucking almost 1 in 10. Less than 50%. Yes, 0%. Well, anyway, anything under 50%, you can't gamble responsibly. Yes, and so they're doing.
No, most people can. Most people can. Right. So if it came down to it, where most of the things with addictive potential, people were incapable of dealing with in a realistic way, then that's where a lot of the stuff is prohibited. But for most forms of gambling, that's not true. The difference is also when you gamify gambling, and all gambling may be a form. You could it's a fine line with some of that. But what it comes down to is how much is like how difficult is it to stop, right? If you're in a casino, you could walk out of the casino. If you have the phone, if you have like a phone gambling app in your hand, there needs to be a little bit more monitoring and restriction on that, to the point that people are not, gambling 24/7, because that would be bad. That would be bad.
I don't watch any sport that glorifies betting. Doesn't matter if it's esports or normal sports. Polar, you're watching a stream on a platform that is in a I mean, if you're watching, well, you're on Twitch. That was a Twitch chat message. But if you're on Kick, I mean, that's promoted by Stake. And if you're on Twitch has an official partnership with DraftKings, which is a sports betting website.
Yep.
So this entire idea that you think that you're getting around this, or like you're avoiding this or whatever, no, you're not. You're absolutely providing money and providing benefits for gambling by being here. So again, just try. Yeah, and also like, there's nothing wrong with that, but just I don't want to hear virtue signaling, right? I don't like hearing that at all. Just because you say something is going to happen does not mean that you said it was good.
What's that coming up on the screen?
I'm not really a gambler personally. I don't really like gambling because I feel like you lose.
He's right. He's right. He's right. Gamers, but by the way, he's right about that. So, yeah, like not to encourage gambling, because gambling, the house always wins, right? In gaming, games are designed in such a way that you have a pretty realistic chance of winning most of the time. It's skill, right? Games of skill. are where it's at for most gamers. So the fact he's calling this, he kind of suggested this, it's went out there, and lo and behold, like a month later, one of the bigs kind of picks up on that. That's interesting. That's kind of it's impressive. But you know, these things are like they're moving in this direction a little bit. I think maybe they got the Asmon push, and the company's like, oh yeah, this is the thing we've been thinking about, you know, like, so I think maybe they decided it's a good time to move forward on that. So yeah, I think Zach's not wrong to take credit for that. I think he did call that. And there's something I'd say a few people might have predicted, but he kind of put it out there, and now it's happening. So that's pretty cool. And if you notice here, I actually right there, that's a meme right there. That's this right here. we actually posted that right there. He's out of line, but he's right. Okay. He's out of line, but he's right. That's kind of our. I think that's really our official position. Actually, we don't you know, we don't get into the whole gambling side of things, and as far as promotional tie-ins, that's totally up to them, right? So we're not going to tell people, the companies, how to monetize. Gambling is on the side of, or something that may be done in game, and it may be something that's chosen as the way that they want to monetize the game. I personally, like Zach, I don't favor it. I mean, the house always wins. So that's not what I would promote. There definitely needs to be some kind of safety measures on it. If that's going to be, you know, widely available, you know, having the ability to gamble straight from your phone, for example, 24/7, without any kind of monitoring or oversight or anything, that has a huge potential for issues with that. But that's that speaks to the math Zach is talking about. If the math is there, and you know, for the most number of people, doesn't really cause an issue. I mean, that is what it is. It's their adults. That is something that's an acceptable risk is in any entertainment or employment type scenario, depending on the risk factors involved. So yeah, let me finish up this video, and there's a whole lot more to get into here.
Personally, I don't really like gambling because I feel like you lose most of the time, so I don't want to do something I would lose in. So why sports betting and why now? So we know betting isn't for everyone. However, some fans have strong feelings about that. We respect it. However, the reality is that it's happening no matter whether you like it or not. Historically, this has been a restricted sponsorship category, and Riot has not engaged with companies. Teams have asked us to reconsider our stance, and after years of analysis to ensure that we got it right, we agreed that it was time to open this category and open up more revenue for teams and opportunities. Sports betting is a space that many fans choose to engage with, and there has been 10 billion.
And let me just jump in and say, I mean, this is not unheard of. Okay, now not everyone does it, right? Some people think it's a little sketchy and all. A lot of people even that don't gamble, they're not like gamblers, they may set a wager on a sports team, right? I mean, it's I think this goes back a ways. I think they're in the Farmer's Almanac era. You know, you could have wagers as to what the season was going to be. I think something about a stock market might have started that way. I don't know the history. I heard something somewhere, I read it. Anyway, the point is, these things are not, they're not totally unheard of. And the difference is, do you want it to be, do you want to have a legal and regulated framework where people maybe have some oversight and protection? They have, maybe a little bit of help to avoid issues with it, or do you want to push it the other way and maybe exacerbate some problems with that? That's more or less what it breaks down to.
Hours of sports betting. 70% of all bets are in unregulated markets with bookmakers who aren't licensed. Bookmakers being licensed or not, none of this really, nobody really cares about this. So I don't really think this matters. I don't think anybody cares, really.
Yeah.
So this is going to go horribly wrong? How could it go wrong?
Zach, I love the way you live react to your chat, man. you have a very rambunctious chat always, and your reacts are very good. So yeah, I hope you I hope I'm doing justice to you with my react here, because you know you said a lot of true shit, and this is this is happening now. So that's pretty impressive. Yeah, like I say, there are trends pointing in this direction and stuff. I don't know if he could claim credit for the whole thing, but he could claim credit for being right. And yeah, so you're absolutely right. And you called it, and you called it in a very short space of time. If it was a bet, you could have profited on that. So I think I'm gonna give this one to Zach for sure. That he's right on this, and not the worst idea. It is an alternative. These are alternative monetization strategies that are better than frankly just like extorting in parlance. All right, I'm not saying it's you could classify it as extortion, but it kind of resembles it's extortion that in terms of like you just have to keep paying for the same product, right? An unchanging product or a never finished game, right? You never can really take full delivery of it. There's real problems. There's real problems with monetization strategies overall right now. And you know, if they wanna sell some I mean, I'm gonna throw out names here. No sponsors. Nobody asked me anything. If they want to throw out some Grey Goose, they want to throw out some Bacardi, all right, some Henny, whatever it is. I probably don't drink any of those. Maybe I do. Anyway, the point is, you know, if they want to get involved and people want to have a drink and game, no big deal. They're of age. They know what they're getting into. There's some regulation. That's pretty much just the evolution and convergence of like, you know, pub and bar establishments with games on site, video games on site, and the home video game systems becoming so ubiquitous now, and phone games becoming so ubiquitous that, you know, it's kind of in the margin, right? So, you know, you might wind up having your phone making you know, an app that makes a reservation for you, so that you could continue your game in the nearest franchised, you know, affiliated, like gambling place, right? So I mean, you would be doing it probably from your phone. You could have a drink when you get there, right? So these, I mean, you could just drop in too, but it'd be nicer if the app did it for you, right? I'm probably giving someone ideas out here right now. If I wind up calling this, I guess I call it too, right? It's good to keep your eye on the ball with respect to these industry trends, and yeah, definitely appreciate where Zach is coming from. Let's get to the meat. Let's get to the big issue right now, which is Stop Killing Games. That's the one that I need to react to, and I need to. That's Charlie. Moist Critical. So he did a video, and Asmon is actually reacting to his video. So let's dive into that. That's the major one. Okay, Stop Killing Games. The petition will have a link in the description, and on we're gonna publish the thing on our website. I'll get on that as soon as this is up. Also, our X feed already has the links. European, UK, and we created the US petition. So we will have a complimentary petition for the U.S. to do some very similar, maybe a little bit more expansive, basically the same thing. So let's get right into it. That is the issue of the day.
And there is an initiative that has been aiming to fight back against a lot of these practices that I think really need some big overhaul. And
it's consumer protection laws. This is effectively what this initiative is. At its very core is consumer rights advocacy. It's not about video games. It's not about Ubisoft. It's not.
I'm gonna say. All right, Zach. Yeah, but no, it is. Fundamentally, it's like it's before that. So you're right. I'm just gonna say it applies to video games, right? Like we're not leaving out video games here. All right, there's more to say on that. Here we go.
Not about what's in a terms of service of a video game or not. It's
Kinda.
really about consumer rights and people having the ability
But that's
to
it.
choose what's going to happen with their own stuff.
That's it.
Initiative that I think a lot of you are probably very familiar with. It's called Stop Killing Games.
That would be a good
And I've
thing.
followed it since its inception. I've talked about it on stream
Yep.
quite a few times.
So have I.
Though this is my first.
No, just to be clear, this is something that has come up in my research that I'm looking at. The Brotherhood is based in the U.S. Okay, and so there's a lot of setup and stuff, right? Once you get a ball moving with legislation, regulation, anything like that, you have to watch it like a hawk. You don't get to you just can't walk away from that, right? If there's a bill in Congress, somebody has to read that bill. They're probably, just to be real with you, to keep it 100, they're not going to probably read their own bill, and their staffers may be reading the bill, but you don't even know if they're all going to read it completely. Usually they're probably going to break that up. It may be necessary because it's like Tolkien, like Lord of the Rings type novel. Let me go back to Zach, but this is not something you can just, you could push it, but you're gonna have to watch it, right?
Video going over it.
Oh.
And I regret that now because I see it wasn't going as well as I thought it was. Admittedly, I didn't follow.
I think it's gone very well. I'll be real. Like, almost 500,000 signatures is a tremendous success.
But for those that don't know anything
That's
about
true.
Stop Killing Games,
That's
I'm going to
true.
let him explain it in his own words. That way you can get a.
So the petition, I believe, needs a cool mill signatures, and they got a half, and I think it's been going, like 10 months or whatever, and that's only for the EU. They have another one in the UK. I don't think it has the time limit. Let's get back into it.
An actual, correct, informed explanation of what the initiative is. And the reason I say it like that, kind of like fucking all, pinky out, snooty, is because a lot of people don't even really know what this is because of people like Pirate Software completely misrepresent.
Ooh. Thor. Ooh. Thor. What did you do there, Thor?
Oh, jeez.
I think you're upset, Zach.
Uh-oh.
Representing what
He
the
sounds a little
initiative
upset.
was.
As a refresher, Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement to stop publishers from effectively destroying video games they have already sold to
All right, so this is Accursed
Almost
Farms,
there.
right?
The simplest bare bones birthday suit,
Yep.
butt-ass naked
Easy.
explanation for
Simple.
what this is. Stop destroying things.
The initiative for Stop Killing Games is to serve the purpose of stopping companies from killing games.
There it is. That's it.
Okay,
Hello.
I can see that. Yeah, that makes sense.
That people
Yeah.
have paid money to own.
Yeah, okay.
I think that is a very
Own.
understandable, very reasonable take. Very.
Thank you, Moist. Charlie, you own what you buy, right? You should have the right to modify, repair, possess, enjoy the value of. Good.
Agreeable. Now I want to quickly jump to a different spot in this video because I think it's important to have this in the beginning because it's something a lot of people have heard that comes from someone that is just wrong about it. It's the Pirate Software portion.
Uh-oh.
Ross is addressing the video Pirate Software
That would-
made many months ago.
I remember watching this.
Ross,
Okay, so Ross, Accursed Farms, right? The guy's been boosting. He's the guy behind it. So, big respect, Ross, Accursed Farms.
even says that he didn't plan on doing that because he didn't want to be seen as using this for drama farming because it would start to make
That's
the
what I do.
movement look less of like a legitimate
Yeah, that's my
initiative and
job.
more of just like drama slop
Bullshit.
content type thing. But he finally starts talking about Pirate
He does some
Software
solid
here
work, though.
Uh-oh.
because it's at the end of the life cycle of this initiative and it's not looking promising. So he's willing to do anything to try and set the record straight and hopefully start getting more momentum back to the movement because
Yeah,
the damage Pirate Software
think he did
to
any
it
wrong.
through his video was substantial.
And I remember this video was actually one of the first points where Pirate Software's audience. I have that.
Maybe kind of turned to him a little. Like,
I have that.
what are you
the
doing,
fuck?
bro? What's up,
What
Thor?
the fuck? Bro,
Trying to
I have
take our
that
games
same
back.
one.
Not gonna tolerate that. Wide angle.
Holy fuck!
I just like to take a moment. You see how clean his room is? That's awesome, Zach. That's awesome. Mad respect.
Holy fuck! I didn't even know that. Same room. Yeah, what the fuck? That's kind of damn. Is he in your house? I guess so.
Yeah. There's a lot of cookie cutter house design in the US. It's yeah, that's another thing. Talk about creativity. Yeah, that's another video.
I guess so. Okay, so anyway, I forgot even what I was saying. Oh yeah. So this video was very polarizing with Pirate Software's audience. And it was one of the big points where, like, I mean, now people don't like Thor, but like back then people were very positive about him. And that video was one of the first points of difference that he had with his audience. You guys remember this?
Not understand what Stop Killing Games is. Here it is in his words.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
So for those who don't understand, the Stop Killing Games initiatives
SKG
is basically, we don't want single-player games
No.
to have DRM that the developers can turn off and thus render the single-player games inactive anymore. This is what they want to change. They need to be specific.
I'm gonna jump in and say I think that's a kind of sorta like that's a kind of a sweeping assertion there, Thor.
That they're talking about single-player games that do not need a server to support them.
No.
And
Not necessarily.
as much as they want it to
No.
Not necessarily.
be
Yeah,
about
exactly. Thank you, Zach.
specifically games where it is a single-player game that has always online functionality, it would impact every live service game that exists. Instead of just targeting single-player, always online games.
No, that's not what it is.
No.
Yeah, just for reference, we're all in agreement here, Thor. You're wrong about that.
Stop Killing Games includes single-player games, but nothing about it is specific to them. He completely made that up, and I have no idea where he got that impression. It's the first line on the website.
That's right.
Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement started to challenge the legality of publishers destroying video games they have sold to customers.
Hell to the yeah. This is exactly what we stand for in the U.S.
But the movement includes all this stuff from earlier, and he was mostly talking about the initiative.
Yes.
He didn't even get the Cliff Notes summary right. Ross is correct.
He just made that. Thor just made that shit up. How are you gonna do that? Thor, how are you just gonna make that shit up? No.
This has nothing to do with just single-player only games
It's also
that require an
multiplayer.
online connection, that when the online connection is severed, you lose access to the game. They need to be more specific in their language about it being single-player, always online connectivity games. When that's just not what it's about. Like, they're not being specific about that because that is not what they are specifically targeting.
It's the most
It is
clear
about
cut
the whole
case, but
practice
yeah.
of destroying
It's right,
games
it's
that
literally- it's
consumers
right there in
have
the first
already
line.
purchased and having
First
no
line.
end-of-life plans for games that are being sunset. So, for example, The Crew. The Crew is an example everyone
The
is
Ubisoft
going to
one,
reference
yeah.
and talk about because Ubisoft is still currently in a lawsuit battling against it for what happened with this game.
Yes.
I've yapped about it quite a bit, so I'm not just going to regurgitate that. I'm sure a lot of you already know this story about it. But basically, you buy The Crew, Ubisoft pulls the plug on the servers, you can't play The Crew anymore. Now
That's
it's
it.
just an old wet dream of what once was. And they are facing a lawsuit. And while this is in the umbrella of Stop Killing Games, it is not the only thing Stop Killing Games is referencing when it comes to this practice.
That's right. This is a case in point. It's a perfect example.
Pirate Software is so hung up on it being single-player games that people lose access to, when that is a component of it, but not the entire focus.
Yeah.
It's one possible way to do it. It's one possible way to do it. We're talking about across the board. Okay, consumer rights.
Yeah, of course, right? I mean, obviously, that's it.
Well, the short version is the initiative is about requiring publishers to have end-of-life plans for games they've sold to customers in the future. So when they shut them down, customers can continue running them without their support. So that's one thing.
And this is something that affects online games and also offline games. Or single-player games.
Thor
Absolutely,
doesn't
Zach.
understand.
Thank
But
you.
he also seems to think this is about converting multiplayer games to single-player.
Transitioning an entire multiplayer server-side game into a single-player video game, which means rebalancing the entire experience around single.
Where is he coming up with this shit?
player, rebuilding everything in the entire game. How are you going to do that with Final Fantasy XIV? You're just going to make all the raids soloable?
How are you just gonna make something up like that, Thor? It sounds to me like he made it up.
Imagine the day that World of Warcraft shuts down, and suddenly you have to make it a single-player game for every individual that ever bought the game. That's what they're asking for.
No.
Because they would have to sunset live service games as a single-player experience. The idea that suddenly you need to make...
I don't think that it was ever stated that it needed to be sunset as a single-player experience. I don't think anybody ever said that.
That's right. Only Thor said that.
I mean, again, like the publisher maintaining the server seems like that would be like a logical question that you would ask. But making every game single-player, I don't really see why you'd need to think about that, considering there's so many locally run servers for all kinds of games, including WoW.
This has nothing to do with it, man. Absolutely.
Every single live service game playable single-player offline? No, dude.
Correct. No.
It was implied.
This part is more confusing than Finnegan's Wake, because nowhere in anything on Stop Killing Games has this even been like a talking point from anyone besides Pirate Software. I don't know where he pieced this puzzle together.
Pulled it right out of
I don't get it. Like, if I'm gonna try and like really reach here and give like a charitable explanation for this take,
it'd be nice, Charlie.
Maybe he's extrapolating based on the idea that if publishers have to have end-of-life plans for their games, that includes MMOs, where once the game is getting sunset, you're pulling the plug on it.
Yeah, that's
you would
what
then
he
need
means.
to turn the game over to the community in a playable state, an accessible state, like give the code to them. Thus, it'd turn it into a single-player experience. So the onus would be on the developers to rebalance their game to be a single-player experience for them. I guess. I have no idea. That still just doesn't make it.
I think also another reason why that discussion was happening is that a lot of the conversation around the Stop Killing Games devolved into single player versus multiplayer and who can host servers and how.
Right.
Like, it wasn't actually in the initiative, but after the initiative was presented, people were talking about those topics.
Yeah, Zach, excellent point. Asmongold just said it. So what happened is you got, was completely legit. Let me fix this here. We have what you're starting out with, right, fundamentally. Just as Zach said in the beginning. All right, you start out with the fundamental assumption of consumer rights, right, broad, and categorical, right? And then what we're getting is like with in Pirate's like false example, right? we're getting one extremely cliche, extremely specific. I believe that the term would be like a canard, right? Okay, right. Something that's not necessarily the case, but like it could be in, like Charlie said, in one eventuality, like maybe one game would have to have that, like in the worst case scenario that could happen, right? Like you may need to do that, but that's not a realistic picture of what we're talking about here, right? And even so, plain language, right? Plain language. You look at the petition, it says like minimum reasonable accommodations. That doesn't mean you rebalance the whole game. That means you give them the cook you got, all right? If that cook doesn't mean full playability, and you could run your own little server, but you're going to have to like implement your whole campaign or whatever on your own, well, guess what? That's your obligation, right? That's your duty if you want to play that, right? Otherwise, you get whatever basic bare bones multiplayer that'll give you. Just that simple. It's just that simple. So it's a false framing. All right, it's false framing. Or that basic.
Any sense, but maybe that's the tree he's barking up with that thought process. I really don't know, because Stop Killing Games at no point ever says any of these multiplayer games need to be converted to single player.
Yeah, nobody
that
said that.
really
Never
is
said that.
outlandish. And the more I think about it, like the more nonsensical it becomes, because even in Pirate Software's hypothetical fanfic there, why would the developers need to rebalance the game?
No.
They would just turn over
they don't
the
have to do
code
shit.
to the community and just it'd be in that state. They're no
Just have to be usable. Just have to be usable. That's it. That's all it requires.
longer responsible for balancing the game. That's the whole point. They're not indefinitely supporting it. They would just be responsible
opposite of that.
leaving the game in an accessible state to the community, while they would shut down the servers on their end.
Right.
Like they wouldn't need to go back through with a whole development team and like
True.
You know, tweak the game to be single player compatible. It just doesn't make sense.
Well,
Like,
if the thing is, if you had a community server, then the community server could do that themselves.
Yeah. That's it.
Like you have all kinds of like WoW private servers that have solo raids and all kinds of weird bullshit in them now. So
Custom.
really, it's not something that the developer would really need to do, because as long as people were able to host and run their own servers, this could be done by the community for the community.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what the thank you, Asmon. That's what the community wants to do anyway, right? Open the toolkit and give us the bare functional necessities, right? All it is not delivering it in a locked state, right? It's not turning it, right, like the Cinderella tale. It's not going to turn into a pumpkin once they withdraw their support. That's it. All the duty to add the art and mechanics and whatever that's not really going to be there if their server's gone. That's the fun of homebrew. All right, that's community dev. That's what that's for. So yeah, completely misleading to suggest that has to happen.
I really do not understand that one. But apparently a lot of people latched onto that talking point from Pirate Software as something that Stop Killing Games was asking for, and how unreasonable it was. Which, if that's what Stop Killing Games was asking for, it would be unreasonable.
Yeah.
But that's not what it's asking for.
Nowhere in there does it say that it's directly targeting always online single-player games.
Oh, he's so close. He's so close to getting it.
It is vague, and because of that, it will impact.
Uh-oh.
He never has that light bulb moment. Well, he is correct in that statement. It's almost as if that's not what the initiative is asking for.
Right.
I know this part is
The vagueness does not ipso facto then therefore support your exact conclusion and the caricature that he presented. So the vagueness does not mean the specific thing that Thor said has to happen. Yeah, no.
This was an outcome of the dialogue around it whenever it came out. Because like whenever this video came out, I watched the same video myself, and a lot of people were drawing a distinction between how would this apply to single player games versus multiplayer games.
Right. And Zach, if I could, I think what happened there is a diversion. Simple. You get people debating irrelevant issues rather than the fundamental issue of consumer rights, which we all should be agreeing on. How about you rep that, Thor? Come on, Pirate Software, come out in support of the principle, and then we'll talk about the details.
I think that's probably why he was talking about it, but like Ross is right that it applies to all games. And it was a dichotomy that was never actually. It was created by the community and not by the actual initiative, if that makes sense.
False
so
dichotomy.
there was a community conversation about that difference, but the initiative never stated or explained the difference themselves.
Again, just reinforcing that he doesn't know what the Stop Killing Games movement is about. But I have to just show you this because it is so fascinating, because he himself literally calls out that Stop Killing Games at no point explicitly mentions single-player always-online games or anything like that. And for some reason, instead of following the breadcrumbs that would naturally lead him to the conclusion of, oh, maybe I misunderstood. Maybe, because it's absent here, that's not what this is actually about. Instead, he uses it as a criticism against the Stop Killing Games initiative entirely, saying it's just too vague, it's way too vague. The reason it is not explicitly stated there is because that is not what the whole initiative is about. It is not specific.
Well, it's also because an initiative like that that is legally defined by a governing body. Like basically, we're not like this initiative is not legal text. The initiative is something that we are effectively trying to communicate to developers, to the government, in order for them to translate this initiative into legal text.
Yeah, beautifully put.
And so it's really not about the specific wording, it's about what the essence of the wording is and what the goal is what the goal they're trying to achieve is.
Beautifully put, Zach.
Like, very clearly this wasn't written by a lawyer, and it would be debated between probably dozens of lawyers whenever it would be discussed.
Right.
it's not
execute
a law.
it.
Yeah, exactly. Like the reason why it's not hyper precise.
They get the petition. They get a million signatures. They're mandated under EU law to pursue it. Right. Then they could do all the lawyering they need to make, to fix the details.
This is because it's not a law.
Exactly.
It's to start the conversation. Yes, clearly.
Targeting that thing that you keep saying that it is. I don't know how that never clicked.
But those were his streams with a smaller audience. What does he say in his big YouTube video with over 1 million views that he had time to research?
If we're trying to kill off the practice of developers putting together a live service game, pitching it as a single-player experience, and then taking away support in the future.
Yeah.
Now he's changed it again and is making up how it's about single-player games are advertised. What is he doing?
Yeah, that's confusing as fuck. I mean, I can follow pretty well, and that's like that's some bait and that's some 3-card Monty type shit. They're not. I don't know if he started out trying to do that, but that's all kind of fucked and confused.
It needs to be specific about the business practice it's trying to defeat, which is specifically companies.
It's not trying to defeat a business practice. It's trying to modify or moderate an outcome that consumers will be saddled with. Okay, it's rather basic, right? It's just making sure that we get what we buy, and have the wherewithal to make good use and retain the value of the purchases, and the value we invest in it when we secure the good, license, bought, whatever you want to call it. That's what it's about.
That are doing this under the guise of it being a single-player game, but adding online-only functionality that is not necessary and doesn't add any gameplay elements. That's the problem.
No, that's not it at all.
Say what?
This is a really strong section from Ross here, because the clips that you saw moments ago were from his stream.
Yeah.
When he took...
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's a component to it, but it's not the entire thing. I mean, again, like there's there would be, like, for example, the way that you would run a single player game would be different than the way that you would run a multiplayer game. Like, for example, like giving players the code for a game would be less necessary and less important if you're just running a game like Dark Souls 1 or Hades or something like that. So, like, it's just simply one permutation of it. But there's really about probably 4 or 5 of different types of games.
Absolutely.
More time to watch it and digest it, he still came back in that video misrepresenting it. Like, it never dawned on him. Like, on stream he could write it off as like, oh, he didn't grasp it in the moment, maybe later on he did. Well, then he made the video where he still was talking about things that are just not what Stop Killing Games was about, and this was the one that really blew.
I sped that up unintentionally. Anyway, yeah. So basically, that's like he came up with a like a no-win situation out of nowhere. The first one was kind of already needlessly complicated because it had nothing to do with the basics of the proposal, and then this is like some other example, which is Charlie is saying, like, this is and Ross, yeah, it's not, none of that's given. Like, he's just throwing out examples, because here's what I'm not pretending, I'm not like a dev, I'm not a psychic, all right, I'm not pretending to understand dev thought processes across the board. I understand it pretty well because I have an IT background. I've dealt with developers, people involved in production, maintenance, specialist maintenance and software and things like that. And, everyone has their purview. They have their area of responsibility, right? Whatever their scope is or whatever. And, sometimes you want to limit your scope. I mean, for any project or, any kind of responsibility, right? In a business sense, you might say like liability and, a bunch of things under it. But pretty much, you want to save yourself work you don't need to do, not part of the work that like you're set out to do, and not give yourself extra work, right? It kind of seems to me like this, he's just like throwing out examples. This is just my surmise, right? Pirate Software, like, you're kind of just throwing out some stuff here to like kind of excuse yourself from even dealing with the issue, is what it sounds like to me. So that doesn't look too good.
Blew up and really started to kind of dismantle the Stop Killing Games momentum.
If we don't like the idea of live service games as a whole, I get it. Don't play live service games then. Don't agree to those terms.
No, he's getting a new thing wrong now.
I think that the idea of not agreeing to certain terms is I don't like that mindset. And the reason why I don't like the mindset is because you could make that argumentation to justify any type of consumer unfriendly practice that's ever existed.
That's right.
The fact is that certain things consumers should not be able to consent to because they're just simply not in the consumer's best interest. And that's why you need government and you need to have regulations. And I know some people act like regulation is some kind of evil fucking, evil spirit word. But the reality is that the computer you're using, the monitor that you're looking at, the phone that you're on, everything that you're using is a product of infinitely many Russian nesting dolls of regulations.
What he said is true. Procedures underneath that, right? Practices on the industrial side, right? Safety and all that, from the mining of all the resources and everything up to making a finished manufactured product. But also, like consumer regulation, that like your PC case, which is steel, doesn't like come coated with arsenic, stuff like that. Take it away, Zach.
Between distribution, merchandising, electricity, wattage, functionality, like everything.
Right.
So everything like this is regulated. So the entire concept about this is about, regulation being bad, completely untrue. People, again, it's like a fish complaining about water.
All right, I'm going to say, it doesn't mean any just plop any regulation, right? Regulation can be useful. It can be less useful. It can get in the way. Regulation sometimes on the back end, I'm just going to say, Zach, regulation sometimes actually can do the very thing that, if it's misapplied, if it's used wrong, okay, sometimes there's things that happen with the regulatory process where it comes out so cooked that you might as well have had the company, you might as well have had the company that wants to take all the value back from you write it, which is very curious, isn't it? Right? Sometimes regulation can have the same effect. So you have to watch that. You have to watch policies, contract terms, and you have to watch regulation. And if you're not doing that as a consumer, right, if we don't all do that, take responsibility and do that as consumers, then we might just let ourselves all get screwed. It could come in the regulatory door, it could come in the contract door, it could come in both. We need to watch that. So I just want to add that. Thank you, Zach.
Live service games then. Don't agree to those terms.
Yeah.
No,
The terms
he's
should
getting
never
a
be
new
there.
thing wrong now. We're not against them existing. We're against them being destroyed with no recourse for the customer.
Yeah.
Pirate Software then goes on to talk about like the business practice of misleading consumers into thinking that what they're buying is a product as opposed to a license to a product, which is a totally separate thing. And then he criticizes.
It's called a red herring.
Just because they rename something doesn't mean that it's a good idea or that it's good for a consumer. Maybe this is like a fucking socialism take, but if a business practice has no upside for the customer, then I don't really think it should exist.
All right.
Why should a business practice exist at all if it has no upside for the customer?
I heard that, Zach. I'm with
Killing
you.
Games for not being specific about that thing that he is bringing up, as opposed to what Stop Killing Games is talking about. So he's using that against them for some reason. And then Ross goes into like the license talk.
Our problem is not with licenses failing to inform people. Blizzard says they can take away your purchase for no reason.
Yeah, I think that's bullshit. They shouldn't be able to do that.
That's right.
If they do, they
That's
should have to
right.
give you your money back.
That's
There's
right.
somebody saying they don't have enough knowledge to understand the problem. This is about giving away the code. So this is one thing that a lot of people might not understand is that you don't need to be an expert in coding to realize that you're getting scammed. Just because.
Just to jump in, like in the U.S. we have like a Fourth Amendment, right? You can't just come in and like grab land, right? Because you say you need it. Well, you can't, in principle, like what I believe and what consumer rights I would say what Zach is speaking to is like you can't just snap your fingers as a company and liquidate the value of something that's already, you know, the ownership license, whatever, has been transferred to someone else. You can't just like Genie snap your fingers and make that vaporize on the consumer's part. That's bullshit. No, there has to be some durable value. There has to be some follow through of integrity in the purchase, right? Otherwise, what's the principle? What's the point of a contract, right? There has to be a little more materiality than that when a transaction has been made.
Because somebody knows a lot about coding and they understand it better than I think Pirate Software probably understands coding better than me, Ross, or Charlie. I would assume that to be the case. But again, think about how many other things, like, you know, we don't know a lot about. Like, we don't know how to make a car. We don't know how to make an airplane. We don't know how to do any of this. But does that mean that we can't ask for safer cars and safer airplanes?
No, it does not.
At better prices that are reasonable? No. Or medicine or something like that. So the reality is that, yes, while somebody might have more knowledge in the topic, that doesn't necessarily mean that that knowledge overrides other people's desire to be treated fairly. And I think if you applied this logic to other situations where people don't have that knowledge in, it would become immediately true that that's the case.
Yeah, it's called justice. Now, we in GBAMS and the Brotherhood, we refer to it with capitals as great justice. Because as gamers, we know what that means. Now, not in the game terms, it's a meme, but in real life, it means you can't rob us of the value of our purchases after we've made them. That's what we say. That's great justice.
Sounds pretty clear to me. Our problem is those terms are so hostile to consumers and the medium that they should be.
And that's the thing, is that just because you put something in your terms of service, the terms of service does not override the law.
Taken off the table entirely.
Yeah, it's not like you could just like that cancels it out.
Forget video games.
That's not how it works.
If you look at basic commerce for hundreds of years, when you paid money, you either got to keep what you paid for, or if it was a service, you were told when your access ends.
Yes.
The vast majority of online-only games do neither of those.
He's exactly right. That is a huge problem. Now, Pirate Software is correct here about these companies that will mislead consumers.
I don't think that Ross's solution to that would be sufficient, because the developer could say that the game will be live for at least 1 year, and then that could give them an out later on, and it would create the same problem. You'd need to have more inclusive language to avoid situations like that, where companies create dishonest timeframes in order to avoid this responsibility.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely, 100%, Zach. Yeah, I mean, the premise has to be protected. I believe the phrasing I'm going to prefer, and it's used also in the org, is a durable value, right? Enduring value, right? So, I mean, you know, you take all the technical stuff aside, and your depreciation and mechanical, electromechanical degradation, and, you know, entropy. We put that shit in the background, right? Don't fucking, you know, try to snow us with that. All right, durable fucking value within a reasonable, you know, reasonably understood and understandable terms for consumers. It's not complicated. It's not. I'm an IT guy. It's not complicated.
And this is, again, this is something that the lawyers would figure out.
And the technical people. Okay, that's because the lawyers still have to consult the technical people. All right, and I'm just telling you, it's not all that abstruse and you know, difficult to understand. It doesn't have to be. Okay. Can't no takesy backsies. Is that hard to understand? I don't think so.
From an initiative. A specific end date? Yeah.
Through this fraudulent advertising on what you're actually buying, because in a lot of cases,
just require
you don't
private service
own
support?
any of the shit that you are buying. It is pretty much a rental. You get a permission slip to access the content. That is an issue, and not making it abundantly clear to consumers.
I think that entire practice is something that should be reevaluated.
That's right.
A license is a construct. This is a legal construct that's created by people. This is different than ownership. Like, owning something is having it in your hand. A license is something that is theoretical. It doesn't exist in any sort of physical sense. And because of that, I think that we should really reevaluate what a license means.
Yeah, damn right.
Why is it okay that we've turned every single product into a license that can be revoked, removed, or taken away from you with really no recourse to the customer?
Exactly. Zach, I probably couldn't have phrased it better. That's exactly right. I mean, if we were to go back a ways, and right, just coming from the American point of view, and start talking about just making these arbitrary, sweeping changes to people's property, right? Diktat, all right, just because I say so, right? The corporation in this case will say more like the crown just come in and decide to just change it because you want to on a whim. That's bullshit. And contract law, it's like IP. It's about a public value, right? I mean, it's about private benefit, right? Because you have a particular person that gets the benefit of a particular product. But in principle, the reason it's protected is because it serves the public. It helps better people. It provides value. And if it's working in reverse, and you have corporate actors that are just coming willy-nilly, just depriving people of value, right? There's something real wrong with that. Yeah, absolutely.
That seems like a very imbalanced relationship in my mind.
Not just yours.
What about driver's license?
Not just yours. You sound like a gamer bro advocate right now. I'm just saying, Zach.
A driver's license affects other people's lives. There's a higher standard of conduct that you would require that from. And also, that's with the government. And the government can't just take your driver's license away for no reason, as far as I know. You have to violate certain laws.
Well, not to get into the tall weeds, but if you read the fine print, it's pretty damn arbitrary. But in practice, and practice matters, right? Contracts are about practice and performance as much as they are what's in the terms, right? So, in practice, they kind of take it back for any damn reason, but we don't talk about that. And usually, they don't do it because they like the revenue.
It's not the same
Jesus,
thing.
that is what you are buying is a problem, and so too is the actual agreements.
And one important distinction, that's the government, right? If they take it back, that's a little different scenario. When you got some private company just trying to take something back, well, I mean, hell no. What the hell for? Why would the public allow that? Are they a government? Are they acting in a quasi-governmental capacity? Do we get to vote in their policies? I mean, I think maybe we should be able to vote in their policies as customers if that's the case. I'm speaking hypothetically. It's almost facetious, but again, in that contingency, in that scenario, I mean, hey, why don't we get to vote on their policies? Maybe they don't want to act like that, so that we don't have to think about that.
As Ross demonstrates with Blizzard, where it says they can just completely terminate it for no reason at all. It really does go against the basic idea of commerce entirely. Video games are in a totally different ball game.
And so are movies
when it
now,
comes
too.
to that. Because half the time you don't realize that you're just buying an admission ticket to a game. You're not actually buying the game. You also don't know how long that's going to last. Again, to go back to Concord, that shit lasted less
3
than
days.
a fucking, fucking rainstorm, basically. There is just so many problems. So I don't know why Pirate Software would be so harsh on StopKillingGames for not addressing specific things that he himself is bringing up.
I think the reason why Thor was so hostile towards it is because he thought that it was unfair towards developers, and Thor is a developer, and so he's taking that perspective.
Yeah.
I don't think he looked at it from the perspective of a consumer, but he looked at it instead from the perspective of a developer.
Absolutely.
Which, again, that's going to be an unpopular opinion to have, because most people that consume content about video games aren't developers, they're players.
Absolutely. And I mean, on that point, I'm not going to talk about motives. I don't know. Again, I'm not pretending any mind reading here, but I think it definitely looked like he was trying to deflect and defer any kind of conceptual responsibility, right, from a dev standpoint, like Zach is speaking to. You know, he doesn't want that work, right? Which, you know, I don't blame him in principle, but just to come up with scenario after scenario of like the worst possible like contrived case of why that shouldn't be, why consumers shouldn't have that agency, we shouldn't have that that protection. That's you know, if it was for the wrong reason, right? Then that would be disingenuous. I don't have that evidence, right? Like I just think he's being defensive, is my impression. Like, oh yeah, I don't want to have to deal with any of that. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, we're not, the proposal does not have the obligations that the pirate, what you're suggesting, right? Pirate, you're it's not in there. It's that simple. You're off the hook. All right. The consumer's on the hook, but the consumer gets the benefit of being able to be on the hook to satisfy ourselves. We're just not locked out. Is that basic? That's not hard to understand.
The quote developer? Well, I mean, he's still assuming that perspective, right? I mean, like that. I mean, we all know that.
Making
I try
up
to be
in
fair,
regards
guys.
to it.
I do.
It
I
just
try to
doesn't
be fair.
I think Zach is
It
pretty
really
damn
is
fair,
a
by the
video
way.
that did significant damage to an actually positive initiative that
That's
aimed
right.
to help consumers in the video game
stands to
space.
reason. I
All
think maybe he
based
did.
on his complete misrepresentation of it, which was a complete mess.
Yeah. I would describe it as a caricature.
People said his perspective was wrong, even if it's from the developer. I didn't say that it was right. The majority of what he said I disagreed with even back then. You can go back and watch the video. And so this is something that I've been completely consistent with the entire time. Also, like, again, I think if a product doesn't exist in a way that's beneficial for a customer, then it shouldn't exist. Like, there are a lot of parasitic types of like contracts. Like, for example, like credit cards are a great example of this. Like, is it in the best interest of the public that the government will legally force you to pay MasterCard or Visa 30% interest? Because again, you've got to keep in mind that all of these companies and all of these rules can only really be enforced by the government. Like, the government
ultimately,
are the ones that really make this decision, not the company. The company says this is against our terms of service,
right,
but if the government says we're just not going to enforce that, then it effectively doesn't matter. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So the issue really is about the government enforcing it. It's kind of like when Nintendo sends somebody a DMCA, the DMCA doesn't come through Nintendo, it comes through the government or the patent office or copyright office of the government.
Right.
So
all right.
the
So I'm
government
gonna pause here. So Zach, yeah, you're right, but there's a little nuance to it. So basically, governments, like, again, like, governments are full of people, like any, any human institutions, right? And there's an element of laziness. I'm not calling, for sake of argument, pirate software lazy, but I mean, it could stand to reason that a dev, like anyone, might be lazy. All right. And so, they don't want to do all the work necessarily, right? So part of the law, the way DMCA and the rest of it's structured, and plus, like, government has enough on their plate probably where they don't have to deal with, like, oh, he called me a mean name online, and like, no one wants, well, probably no one really wants to deal with that, but like, the government doesn't want to typically, right? And there's a lot of resources involved to finish that. They don't want to deal with that, so they give it to the companies, right? So they have their own purview. But it's a delegation of power, okay? And before it gets back to government, they say, no, you take care of it, right? You handle it internally, right? And these companies have been given so much latitude, so much agency, and so much wherewithal to act and make these sometimes very arbitrary and sometimes inconsistent and sometimes very expropriative and exploitative, right? That's to say, deny and deprive consequentially, right, in the decisions that they may be making, that it starts to look like, I don't know, like a little bit like a government coming in and taking stuff. Because they have that authority to kind of like deny, and you get this and you get that, and if they have that much authority, well, I don't know, it's looking kind of governmenty to me, and yet it's not the government. So we gotta look at that. We should have a really thorough conversation about this as a society. But yeah, this is a good talk.
Really the ones that make these decisions. the or choose not to make these decisions. The companies are simply asking them to make the decisions.
Try to tell me that every studio needs to run their live service game indefinitely or not want to run one at all, then no one's going to run them.
Oh no!
Yeah.
You wheeled out that line about publishers having to support the game forever.
That's bullshit.
He was
That's
literally
big bullshit.
watching
Yeah,
the
a lot of people talked about that when it came out.
video earlier where it says it won't do that.
That
in
is what we
big
call a
letters.
flat line.
That wasn't enough. We just can't stop gamers from going there, even when we spell it out.
That's the last clip I want to show from this section on the
Ah,
pirate software
jeez.
video. It is very simply asking that when the game has reached the end of its life cycle, the publishers, developers don't want to work on it any longer.
The vagueness is key for the initiative.
Turn it over
Yeah.
to the community to still be in a playable, accessible state so the product can still exist. There is some more nuance, obviously, to how that works, given like publisher developer licensing and a lot of like the code, the binary, that kind of thing. There is
Yeah.
a lot at play.
I'm not sure if I agree that the companies should have to relinquish the code. I'm not sure if I agree with that. I think that might go too far.
Okay, and on that point, I mean, if you read the Zach, if you read the it's just what, a couple lines, couple paragraphs. You know, it is a little abstract. I mean, it's not the most apparent language, but it's right there, and it says that they are not compelled to to relinquish. They're not compelled to give over the code. What they're required to do is leave it in a usable enough state that the consumer can do what they need to do with it. Again, it's just very simple. It's like the concept of a lock. Are you going to leave it locked so they can't get to it? That's really all we're talking about here conceptually, all right? Is it locked or is it unlocked? Kind of like a phone. Can you take it to another carrier? Is it locked or unlocked? It's very basic, actually.
I'd really have to think about that more because there's a lot of proprietary code and things like that. That would make no sense. Yeah,
It's a fair
I
point.
think that
It's
would
a
be
fair
too
point.
much.
And it's
As
not what it
mentioned in the
says,
beginning,
anyway.
Most of Stop Killing Games hasn't been successful in getting change. And Ross has
I'm just going to say, support Stop Killing Games. Go if you're in the EU, and if you believe in consumer rights and you're a gamer, you want to do right by yourself and do right by yourself in the future, you should be supporting this. Gaming Brethren Advocates is in favor of this petition, in spirit, in principle. It's not our area because that's the EU, but in principle, this is something we would support in the UK. We think that's a great idea. That if the people there think it's a great idea, we would say we would compliment them to adopt it. It's a great idea. All right. So have at it. For the U.S., our position is couldn't be clearer. I actually created the petition. Our group hosts the petition, change.org. It will be in the description. So we have this and somewhat more comprehensive. I'm sure someone will want to pick over language, and I'm here for it. I'm all ready for it. We're gonna have a good talk about it, and we're gonna reach useful, constructive, and socially beneficial conclusions. That's the goal. Gamers win. That's the real goal. Okay, that's the win. So let's do this.
dedicated so much of his life to this, and it's clearly taken a big toll.
It's been a lot.
Now he's doing everything he can.
He's
for
worked
this
hard on it.
last ditch push to try and help. And there are two big things coming up that can do so.
What are
and
they?
it's what I linked at the very beginning of the at the very beginning of the
Yeah.
video about the resources in the description. It's in regards to this.
One is for the UK to sign a government petition to bring this issue before Parliament. Though, keeping it real, I'm not terribly optimistic about this one, since the government response has been a mess by every definition. But the one that has a lot of power, so much so
it
I
the
think it could
France one?
change the course of gaming history, is the European Citizens Initiative. Now, I said I'm approaching this like a time traveler because with the trajectory we're on, these are both going to fail. Again, this one is crazy powerful, but the hurdle we just couldn't get past was that it requires 1 million signatures.
I'm just going to pause it. All right, I'm going to pause it and ask you to pause it here. If you live those places, if you're in the EU, go to the description. You can come back to the video. Go to the description, click on the link, and go ahead and put your name there. And the same thing again for the UK. Again, it's just, you read it, make sure you want it. It's for you guys. But if you're in the US, I mean, I'm going to tell you, you should be doing this if you're a gamer. We need this here too. Our language is a little broader, but theirs is on a time limit, so they need the help now. So tell a friend in the EU.
From citizens of EU countries. And we've only made it just under halfway.
Yeah.
What a lot of people don't realize
lot.
is that in the EU especially, it's almost a state of lawlessness regarding the practice of game destruction. Is that the vast majority of games with an online
I feel like this is the case everywhere. Like it's
It
kind
is.
of like an uncharted territory.
It is.
Because like we're just now entering into the phase of live service products going end of service.
Yeah.
Or things that you buy through a license on the internet that disappear.
Yeah, Zach, I'm going to say on our X account, which doesn't get a whole lot of clicks. Sometimes it does, but like we could use a follow. GBAMS, GBAMFS. All right, it's the same as gbams.org, our website. We have a highlighted thread on the destruction of, as an analogy. All right, as an allegory of the concept, what we're talking about here, with a real world concrete example, the destruction of the old Penn Station. That's P like short for Pennsylvania, PENN, Pennsylvania Station, that was in New York City, and it was one of the great buildings in America. Right, a great classic neoclassical revival architecture. None of that particularly matters, but it was beautiful. It was a gorgeous public space. And because of the railroads, finances, and things that happened, they just sold it off. They turned it into a big, ugly stadium and buried the trains in like a really. I've been there in like a really grimy, low overhead, cramped. I mean, it's not a good space. All right, they took a great, beautiful public open space and turned it into a rat hole. I mean, literally, because that you know. Anyway. That is what we don't want to happen in games, and we highlighted that as an example, right? We don't want that to happen digitally, all right? Now, there's historic preservation laws that protect buildings now, because people understand the loss, the cultural loss, and like the loss of value to the public. It's a little different for pieces of software because like individuals own them, but when everybody is faced with the same kind of restrictions and maybe the same kind of takesy-backsies policies from the companies, that's kind of the same thing. In effect, it's like a removal of the it's an enclosure of the digital commons. All right, to phrase it a certain way, and I'll get into that another time. I really thank you guys for bringing this up.
Like really, it's kind of a new phenomenon. Because like in 1995, for example, you would rent, a VHS tape of fucking, I don't know, Ben-Hur from, what do you call it?
Good movie.
I don't know, like I'm trying to think, a Blockbuster, that's the one.
That's the one.
And like you would just take it.
Maybe even a Betamax.
You take it back, right? It's very simple, it's easy to
And you had to rewind first.
understand. Or you would buy the movie, and then you could just simply watch the movie when you would want.
That's right.
And so now you have all of these complexities, and I don't think that the law has caught up to
No, it has not.
the culture around these complexities.
Zach is 100,000% on the money, right? This is the Wild West, and some of these companies, I'll be real with you, are the banditos. They're the outlaws. All right. No, most of them aren't. No, that maybe most of the time, but some of them are, and some of the ones that aren't always that way. Sometimes they still are, and they're getting away with it. And yeah, it's time for gamers to rise up, demand our consumer rights. I'll get this shit straightened out, get it in order. Absolutely.
That's fundamentally what the problem is that the technology has advanced way faster than the law has.
And I want to say, that's true. That's true. But on the back end of that, the policies have been very permissive to these companies. And that's because we want them to develop the technology. We want them to have the agency, the power, not be restricted so that they can make it. But at this point, that's not really the issue. At this point, they're just kind of using it to claw it back and put up fences and walls and restrictions and give you 3 and 4 cost points, right, prices for sometimes the same material. And I mean, that's not right. That's not right.
Environment say they can be terminated at any time for any reason. Or Blizzard likes to say any or no reason. But according to the EU Commission, that might be a violation of Directive 93/13 EEC, which protects consumers against unfair terms and consumer contracts.
Yes.
How about that? Yeah.
See, this is again what I was saying. The idea that, oh, you signed up for this, so it's okay, that's bullshit. That's not how it works.
If that term is unfair, that means that part of the contract is null and void.
He goes on to explain how powerful that can be because of
faith
what a
practices, they
mess
are.
that is.
Now I'm gonna just take a sec here, and I wanna elaborate on that point that Zach just made, because there's actually very specific language on our website. All right, so I'm gonna throw this up real quick here. All right, this is our website. Let me make sure you can see that. All right, yeah, you should be able to see that just fine. So this is the site, and we have a FAQ. Okay, that's for those of you who don't know, it's a short FAQ, frequently asked questions. It's under who we are, what we believe. So right here, okay, and I'm just going to read you real quick. Okay, this has been substantially the same information since around 2019, 2020 when I first wrote most of it. Okay, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but yeah, let me just search for one term here. Okay, yeah, okay. So basically, although this is under the privacy area, because I mean that's one, right? This refers to like data autonomy, or right, data sovereignty. Because it's multifaceted. Zach is absolutely right. There are many components to it, and it intersects in many different ways, and it has to be responsibly delved into. Like this is now a social, society responsibility, where this technology and the policies that have been applied to these companies and the status quo are at a point where they're breaking, right? They're breaking down. They're not working in the public benefit. They're working sometimes against the public benefit. We won't even talk about what's happening with like major entertainment IPs, right? We're talking from a creative standpoint. That's not the discussion right now. That's not it. And even if it was, that isn't necessarily the singular consideration. That's art, right? You could do that later, the correct creative part. This is about the science and the commerce. All right, this is about the law. Okay, really simple. You don't even have to get into all that. You could do that later. I do on other streams. But right here, how should, for example, how should privacy be handled in games? Because your data is being sold. Do you own your data? Do you own your personally identifiable information? Do you own your clicks and all that? These are questions we don't have answers to right now. They're things that needs to be discussed. How should privacy be handled in games or platforms? Policies that unduly burden or restrict user ability to set their preferences should be adjusted in favor of the user being able to do that. Although much of these concerns have been addressed through tort law, right? You don't always want to get a lawyer involved, right? That's like last resort. Usually it's not the point. It should be user accessible, right? Technologically and where possible, right? The way the common law, this is theoretical, right? But going back to the history of law in English-based systems, the common law is what? It's common because common people can understand it. You don't need to have a law degree to understand it. It's, to some extent, common sense. It's something that's a little bit distant and a little bit of a high-placed point, but it's real as fuck, just so you know that. Addressed through tort law, there is a component of them that broaches civil liberties type areas. Isn't that interesting? As a pro-gamer, pro-freedom group, that's us, GBAMs, we aren't against monetization strategies. We're not. Make your money. Just don't do it crooked and then tell me that that's fair. But at the same time, we recognize that no private or public, these are big companies, publicly traded, stock market traded companies, that should be transparent. Sometimes they're just transparently crooked. That's the bad part. Has the right to sell you down the river under the terms of contract. That's actually that's a kind of a classic phrase, but it's real, right? Like sometimes you heard a phrase, "Don't trust the ferryman." Well, yeah, you don't just You can't just be sold a bill of goods that way and expect a law to inevitably defend that kind of practice. That's not how it works, and it shouldn't work that way. Reasonable protections of you, your personal info, and metadata should be observed. That's just on the privacy front. We have a FAQ full of points like this, and they cover all kinds of facets like this. Owning your data is one thing. Owning your licensed or purchased software, right, in terms of the product itself, that's another. These are all big questions. These need to be addressed, and we're doing our part to raise awareness. We want gamers to get involved. This is actual real gamer discussion on the side. Play your games, but once you're done, this needs to be fixed, right? Gamers need to pay attention. This affects our lives. This affects our culture. This affects our art, and it affects our wallet. We must pay attention to this. Thank you, Zach, Charlie, everyone for bringing to light this stuff, and let's get back into it.
Because there is so much gray area with how the video games currently operate in regards to those protections, it would be a legal headache that would require an analysis of the laws or implementation of new laws that could lead to, hopefully, an improvement.
And that's the goal. But that's not something that anybody in this video would be able to do. This would have to be defined by people that have extensive understanding of copyright and IP law. And basically, lawyers and politicians would have to come to this conclusion.
Zach, let me interrupt you a little bit. You want the IT dudes on your side on this one. You don't want the lawyers and politicians. I mean, yeah, you want them on your side, sure, if you can get them on your side. But you want the IT people on your side. Don't know about the devs. We want them on our side, sure. But IT guys are the auditor for the devs. Okay. You heard of Doge? Well, if you're going to do a code audit, specifically, you probably want a dev for that. But if you want to audit the whole operation of the software, we're not just talking like in the particular code, right? The vertical slice of the code. We're talking how it runs, right? The whole thing, right? Does it break your computer? Yeah. You want IT people's perspective on this, and I'm here. I'm here to serve gamers on this. I want to get this. We need to get this right.
The initiative is just simply to bring awareness to the issue. It's basically saying we have a problem, but it's not giving a solution.
Mm-hmm.
Comes to gaming. So the big hurdle was the signatures, needing 1 million, and currently it's at like 460,000. So it
Sign a petition, people.
doesn't reach the threshold. I've been very vocal from the very beginning about how little faith I have in petitions, but
Yeah.
that's
It
just from the
depends on the
perspective of
petition.
an American. In America, petitions are more worthless than toilet paper. You're better off
That's
just
not always
writing what you
true.
want on a note to Santa Claus and shipping it to the North Pole than you are doing anything with a petition in this country.
Is there-
All right, that's funny as fuck. All right, Charlie, that's funny. I'm handing it to you. That was funny, but petitions per se, maybe. Okay, firstly, it depends on the petition, depends on the jurisdiction, it depends on how well crafted that petition is. All right, but fundamentally, we have in some states we have referendums. All right, not every state or commonwealth, we have both. Features referendums, but basically that's a popular petition, right? First you start with a small petition, you get a little slice of the population to support it. If they support it, then you have everybody vote on it. And for the states where that's the case, and I'm supportive of that. I think that's initiatives. They're called initiatives some places, other places they're called referenda, right? That allows the people by majority, or depending on the issue, and whether it's voting on, it all depends, right? But that allows the people, usually by majority vote, to basically vote in a law or take one out. Okay, that's pretty powerful, right? That's a direct democracy in concept, right? So some people think that's a really good idea. I think it's pretty cool. Sometimes maybe not the best solution, maybe it sometimes is. That's a whole long discussion, but it's pretty important. So petitions can matter. Yeah, and this one is important in the EU because the way their system works, I'm pretty confident that this is going to help them out. So, get on that, EU people.
Tariffs?
I don't know how different it is in the EU. Maybe it really is this powerful there
Yeah,
that could
more.
lead to
I think it's very obvious that the European Union is more progressive about creating digital consumer protections.
That's true. GDPR, among
And
others.
I think that they are about probably 10 years ahead of the United States.
Probably fair. Yep.
And that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's going to happen anywhere, it will happen in the EU.
Yep. What Zach said. Absolutely. Asmon just said. That's right.
Substantial change and improvement when it comes.
And by the way, this is something that makes things better for everybody too.
Hell yeah, it does.
Because as soon as this is made available and made evident to everyone, then we can all see, hey, yeah, by the way, this is actually something that's very beneficial. This is something that's great.
All right.
And it also, the companies, if enough countries have laws against these types of practices, then those types of practices become non-commercially viable.
That's right.
And as soon as that happens, that's whenever games change for everybody.
That's right. That's right.
The
So
games and preservation and all of what we've already
EUW
talked
again.
about.
that's why the EU, can be like a canary in the coal mine proverbially, or this is one metaphor. It probably doesn't apply so well, but a bellwether. In the U.S., we say a bellwether, right? So that's just saying if EU does it, it's kind of like a similar things happen with California. They're so big when they pass a regulation. A lot of us get their regulations. It's going to be similar with the EU. Okay, so yeah, it's even if you're American and you have a friend in the EU, maybe just say, hey, do you support this? And maybe you should, because it's going to have a good influence globally.
I think EU does a really
Hopefully,
good job on this.
I mean, that's really all that's left for the Stop Killing Games initiative, which sucks, but that's the position that it's in, unfortunately. And I wanted to talk about it because I really want to see something change with the games industry. I've said that so many times recently, but it's in such a sorry state.
Thank you, Charlie.
I'm talking big budget
That's
AAA
right.
space. Indies, I think, are absolutely crushing it. Absolutely.
I think big budget AAA games right now are in a transitionary period. And it seems like also one of the big reasons why I think AAA gaming right now is suffering is because it's subjected to something that's very upsetting to someone who has a monopoly, which is competition. Ooh. When you have Chinese developers, Korean developers, and now Indian developers, and of course, obviously, you have some European developers. European is the West, but again, I'm talking primarily about America. You have people like the Warhorse Studios that made Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, or you have Sand, it's not Sandbox, it's Sand something Interactive that made Expedition 33. So that's really what I think is happening. Is that you're having more of these companies come in and compete against the Sandfall. Yeah, there you go. Sandfall.
They're very
Interactive.
creative titles.
You're having
Very
them
well
compete
received.
against these traditional studios, and the traditional studios are just simply too big or too large to compete.
Yeah, they're
what's happening
golden right now.
They're resting on their laurels, as the old phrase goes.
The golden age of indie games, but overall,
We
in the big
definitely
budget
are.
games and the way the industry keeps pushing things, it sucks. So I wanted to talk about Stop Killing Games here. Hopefully things can turn around and maybe a huge W's around the corner for the Stop Killing Games
Hope so.
initiative. We'll see. But anyway,
Nice
I
one,
want to
Charlie.
commend Ross for his hard work spearheading all of this for so long.
Ross has done a great job.
And Russ,
that's really about
100%,
it.
100,000%.
Yeah,
That was
I
great.
think this is definitely true, and I'm very glad to see this. I think this is it's a great thing, and I'll also link the petition so you guys can take a look at it as well, and we can get an idea of how many people are actually signing this. And so, where is it? Right here. There it is. 50. Wow. So now it's actually
it's
I
coming
guess
up low.
it's achieved
It
a
is a
second
chance.
wind with this new conversation about it. And there's the thing right there. If you're a European citizen and you care about this this issue, again, the solutions provided by Stop Killing Games might not necessarily be what the most reasonable and the best solutions could be, but at the same time, it's something that at least is a good start. Well,
Absolutely.
anyway, thanks for the time for telling people, and obviously.
Absolutely. Zach, I think I'm gonna close my react here. So I'm gonna thank Ross firstly. All respect to Ross for promoting and putting this in front of the public eye for the EU. That's a great move. A pro gamer move in the right direction. Moist critical, Charlie. I didn't expect you all. I mean, you know, I did. I'm really, I'm really gratified. I'm really grateful, that you and Zach, Asmongold, are highlighting this, because this is, I mean, this is it's the struggle of our age. All right. I mean, not to put too fine a point of it, a point on it. It's not really understood, right? Because we're all kind of, you know, it's like people with blindfolds feeling the different parts of the elephant, right? You have like 7 different people feeling, oh, you know, it's a rope and he's touching the tail, and another has, you know, this is a pipe because it's the trunk. Well, yeah, we all are approaching it from different angles, right? With these big companies, the way that it presents as an issue is let me go full screen here. The ways it presents as an issue looks different, right, in every scenario in the product and whatever. But the problems are in common, and the similarities are basically they're all the same, right? Whatever the product is, a movie or a game, whatever. There's underlying deep and extremely pertinent similarities, right? So we really shouldn't, you know, if and in responsibility to ourselves and in a degree of social responsibility, we shouldn't just conclude that you know, prematurely, that like, oh, well, this is just, you know, my problem that I'm having with this, right? It's just me. It's just this one company, just this one time. As a matter of fact, I'm not saying it is everywhere all the same, but if you look into it, a lot of it has some underlying similarities, and has to do with the way contract law, also known as an end user license agreement, EULA, okay, is addressed in the U.S. at least, right? Speaking for U.S. experience, and the way the TOS, terms of service, how that's operated, also how service providers. This is something our FAQ delves into a little bit, right? I'll give you my TED talk another time, but the FAQ addresses these in bullet points, and all of these, you know, IP law, data, your privacy, your data ownership. These are all basically connected, and the other side of it is the companies are given a lot of leeway. They're given a lot of, like, you know, like I mentioned earlier, the government doesn't want to, you know, get into all the nitty gritty of this, and that's responsible to a degree, because it may be better handled, you know, in theory locally, right? Or like, you know, without getting lawyers involved in the law, and it's really convoluted quick. But this is a discussion that we need to have of, you know, where that line is drawn, how much agency, and, you know, how much responsibility consumers have, how much duty the company has to provide that durable value, to not to claw it back. No clawbacks, no takesy backsies. And again, it's not some great difficult to understand concept. It's just a really easy to understand concept. It's just, you know, it's put through different lenses depending on the type of media and the type of service it is. But no takesy backsies is pretty simple, right? It's not hard to understand. That's real easy to understand. You pay for something, you know, you work for it, and you know, you get some kind of title to it or something. It should mean something, and it shouldn't just evaporate it because, you know, someone in a suit, or a bureaucrat, a corporate bureaucrat maybe, could be either way, just decides that it's not yours anymore, right? That shouldn't be allowed. That's not decent. That's not good, and that does not have the spirit of great justice, which crosses every zig. I know that's a meme, but I am serious. It doesn't have the spirit of great justice that gamers are about and deserve. And yeah, we have passion for our rights as consumers, and we can have good humor, and we can have good enthusiasm in addressing it, because law is boring as fuck, right? Like, I mean, a lot of this is not exactly, you know, they may not be hot topics if we don't make it our responsibility to deal with them. We have to deal with them, because otherwise we're all going to get screwed, right? That's a good motivation to deal with them, and do it with a smile on your face. So that's what we're looking to do. GBAMS is here to offer our guidance. I'm here to offer my technical expertise and encouragement, and I love what Zach did here, Charlie. I wish you guys would keep beating this drum, because we need to get the public, the gaming public, aware that this is something we need to do. I'm going to caveat this. This is relevant. If we do not succeed in doing that, the high-powered corporate lawyers, the lobbyists, the politicians who don't understand anything about video games, never have. Maybe one day they will, you know, one day. But right now, I don't think they're on our side, you know? Like, they don't know shit about it, so it stands to reason that if we don't get in there, then they're going to get in there first, and it's going to turn out badly for us. So I'm just going to put that there, all right? It's better we take the initiative, take the responsibility ourselves, raise awareness, raise the message, like Charlie, Zach just did, and do what we need to do responsibly, and get the politicians and lawyers to work with us to make sure that the best public interest is served. Right? It's really that simple. So I really want to thank you for signing the petition. If you all haven't, please go and sign it. Thank you for listening to these guys stream. Thank you for listening to my reaction. Gamers rise up. Let's make this happen.